把它摁。哎呀，不是这
Hello,
知道这
everybody. Good evening or good morning, wherever you are. Here in Japan, today was a really beautiful day. Cherry blossoms are in full bloom. The first blossoms are falling, and the leaves of the trees are just starting to come out. Um, so nice to see you again for Zen and Zazen. Xuan will join us in a minute, if I understood Chris' Chinese right. His Chinese isn't really perfect, so I was not quite sure what he was saying, but I think Xuan should join us in a minute. And today, as the last couple of times, I suggest that we sit first for half an hour and then I talk a little bit, and after that, if you have questions, we can discuss. So let's start with the actual sitting.
我都不天
我们开始坐下。
我得出墙里，我这腰，哎，可累的脚，我得出，对，还挺棒的哈，是吧？我从这边，要不然难受，看着我这偷着动。
轻音，
静音，
轻音。
哦，哎呦。
Thank you very much. Today I want to talk about an old Chinese koan again that you can find in no English or German book, but in Japanese it's this book, in Taiwanese it's this book. It's chapter 19, I think. And well, the title of the chapter in Japanese, you would read it Ichinichi nasa nakeleba ichinichi kuwazaru. In English, that would be one day no work, one day no food.
今天我们分享这本书，就是幕后老师之前写的那本书。然后我今天上午把内容发给大家了哈。那个标题是一日不做，一日不食。
The main character of the story in Japanese, the name is pronounced Hyakujo. I think in Chinese you say Pai Chang. And this person, Hyakujo or Pai Chang, is credited with starting the self-sufficient lifestyle of Zen monasteries in China.
这个公案是有一个叫百川的禅师，然后在百川禅师之前呢，禅的修行方式和百川禅师提出这个方案之后的修行方式完全不一样。
Originally, at the time of the Buddha, Buddhist monks were not allowed to engage in productive work, like in farm work. But that changed in China, and also today in Japan. Antaiji is a self-sufficient temple where the monks also engage a lot in farming. But in Japan, probably Antaiji is the only temple where the monks actually by themselves plow the fields and sow the seeds and harvest. And I've never visited a Chinese monastery, but I also heard that Chinese monks today do not really do agricultural work anymore. I'm not quite sure about the time of Hyakujo or Pai Chang. I could imagine that even at that time, the monasteries owned a lot of land, and they were basically overseeing the farmers. So the farmers were working for the monks, and the monks were basically making sure that the farmers did the work.
就是在百川禅师以前，传统的修行方法是禅僧修行的这些和尚，他们不耕作，然后是靠乞讨，靠那个化缘。维持生活，在中国也是，传统的这个修行的禅师，和尚们他们不耕作，特别早以前他们可能就是寺庙有好多的田地，但是和尚自己不耕作，他们是雇人来耕作。像在日本的安泰寺也是这样，好像只有安泰寺不是这样，安泰寺是现在有自己的。田地哈，然后安泰寺好像是现在日本唯一一个自己在耕种、自己自食其力，自己做、自己种菜、自己吃的那么一个寺庙。然后中国现在好像也没有，就是有自己的田地，然后耕种的寺庙。
But at least according to legend, the monks at the time of Hyakujo by themselves planted the fields and did a lot of work. So they were not only doing meditation, but also work was part of the practice. And Hyakujo or Pai Chang, who is at the center of the story today, obviously was still working hard when he was quite old. So at one point, his students that were worried about his health hid the tools, like for example the hoe or the sickle and all the stuff that he needed for farming. They hid the tools so that he was not able to join in the work.
对，在百川禅师开始呢，他们就开始耕种田地了。然后 那个当然，百川禅师他已经很老了，当时年纪已经很大了，还在就是在田里干活儿，所以他的这些弟子们担心他的健康，然后就把他的那些耕种的用具藏起来了。
So when Hyakujo in the morning wanted to go to work, but he discovered that all the tools had disappeared, he returned to his room. And even when it was time for lunch, he wouldn't get out of his room. And when people called him to eat, he refused to eat. He wouldn't eat.
然后第二天早上呢，百川禅师起来的时候没有找到自己耕种的这些工具，他就一直到中午的时候都没有出他那个门，一直在他的房门里待着。然后呢，然后一直到中午饭的时候都没有出来。
So his students that were worried about the master, they asked him, "Please, master, why don't you eat?" And Hyakujo answered with these famous 8, in Chinese it would be 8 characters. One day no work, one day no food. Or often in English it said, a day without work is a day without food.
然后他的弟子们就很担心他，因为到中午了他都没有吃饭。然后弟子就问他，那个师傅，你为什么不出来吃饭呀？然后他就回答了这个特别有名的这句话：一日不做，一日不食。
So now the question is, what did Hyakujo exactly mean? Some people interpret this as saying, if you're not working, then you shouldn't be eating, because only people that work should be allowed to eat. If you don't produce anything, you have no right to eat. So if you don't work, you don't eat.
那问题就是在这儿，你应该怎么理解这句话呢？一日不做，一日不食。有些人理解为一分耕耘一分收获，就是如果你不工作就没有吃的，你工作多少就吃多少。但是这个意思吗？大家是怎么理解的？
But I don't think that was what Hyakujo wanted to say. There's a saying by Sawaki Roshi, the guy that we studied last week, Kodo Sawaki. He said once, do you eat to later take a shit? And do you take a shit to produce manure? And of course the answer is no. Nobody eats because they want to go to the toilet later. And nobody goes to the toilet so that you can use the manure. Although even today in Antaiji we use the manure in the toilet later in the fields to help grow the vegetables, but that's not why we go to the toilet. And we don't eat so that we can later to the toilet. We eat because we are hungry. And sometimes people eat even because they're not hungry, because it tastes so good. And Sawaki Roshi says then, but why do you go to school? Today people go to school so that they can later get a job. Why do they want a job? So that at the end of the month you get money. So from Sawaki's point of view, that's kind of upside down. You shouldn't be studying because you want a job. You shouldn't be working because you want money. But you should be studying because you want to learn. Because studying itself is the reward. And when you work, it should be the same. Not because you want to eat. You have to eat, so you need money. But work should also be the reward of working. Working in itself is an expression of life. Just like eating or going to the toilet is an expression of life.
然后我们之前分享的那个 Sawaki 老师，就是中文是泽木老师，他对这个一日不做一日不食有一个见解。他之前说，那你们大家是因为要上厕所，你要排泄，然后是因为吃完就会排泄，你是因为为了排泄而吃吗？或者说你是因为排泄以后有了空间才吃新的食物吗？其实不是，你想吃东西是因为你饿，你想吃；你上厕所是因为你现在想上厕所，而不是因为上洗手间然后吃东西。吃东西是为了以后上洗手间，或者说是上完洗手间有了空间而吃饭。就像我们从小学习，是为了找好工作。 工作是为了挣钱一样，学习本身就是个奖励，工作本身是奖励，然后钱本身是奖励，不是因为工作为了钱，而钱是因为有了工作，它本身工作本身和学习本身其实就已经是奖励。
So in the case of Hyakujo, the students were worried, so they only took away the tools, but they wanted the master to eat anyway. So they said, of course, master, you should eat. It's just that because of your old age, please don't work so hard. But for Hyakujo, when he said one day no work, one day no food, what he was saying was basically, if you take away my work, that's just like taking away my food. It means the same. For me, work is just a part of life, just like eating. If you don't allow me to work, it's just as if you would not allow me to go to the toilet or not allow me to go to eat. That's what work is for me. Work is not a means to later eat. Work is part of my practice. And please don't take away this part of my practice from me.
然后这个百川禅师呢，他在这儿说的这个一日不做一日不食，其实也是这个意思，就是不是因为我工作是为了之后我劳作是为了之后可以吃，劳作就是吃，劳作等于吃，因为劳作是我生活的一部分，你不让我们你就是怎么说呢？大家为了我吃而为了让我去吃饭。然后拿走了我的工具，其实就等于不让我吃饭，是一个道理。吃饭就等于工作，所以他意思就是说，工作是我生活的一部分，劳作和工作是我生活的一部分，它和吃东西没有一个直接的关系。
Today in many countries, if you lose your job, if you lose your work, still the state will make sure that you have enough money and you can still buy food and you can still supply for your family. Still, a lot of people that lose their job, they're not happy. Oh, now I have more time for myself. But it's rather, even if you get enough money to live, you lose a lot. And why is that? Because work gives a meaning to your life. You don't just work in order to live, but work gives meaning to your life. And I think that's exactly what Hyakujo or Pai Chan try to say in this koan.
就像我们现在一些人，他失去了工作，也不是就他没有，就工作当然是为了挣钱，工作有钱，但是有些人可能他失去工作之后，国家会给支持，国家还是会给帮助的，不是不工作就没有钱。有一些人可能没有工作之后有很多的时间会很高兴，但是有一些人呢，没有工作之后很痛苦。然后有工作也不一定证明他很幸福，因为你要为工作付出时间，付出很多，你可能失去了自己自由的时间。所以百川禅师在这儿可能说的是，劳作就是生活，劳作就是你生活的一部分。
Okay, so much from my side. How about you? Do you have any questions, any comments?
然后大家有问题可以提啊。
Yes, please, Stepan. I think you're still mute. We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Hello.
Hello.
I work as computer for the living. It's quite comfortable job and well paid, but yesterday I was somewhere with the friends in the mountains. I spent half day working with the woods, and it's easy to see for me this a bit of this attitude, like it makes sense just to do it, and but when I do something like computer work, I admit it's hard for me. It's kinda, it fills my mind. It takes either it tires me too much or it excites me too much, and I either get tired of it or I don't know. So it's not exactly a question, but do you have anything to say about this, kind of work which is not material but more like intellectual or computer based or whatever.
I mean, it's really what I just said is that work is also an expression of life. So it would be ideal to have a work that is fun, that we can enjoy every day. But it's really hard to find that kind of work. Or even if you make your hobby into your work, once it starts to become work, it's not as much fun as it used to be with a hobby. And I think it's not really so much a question of is it intellectual work or is it physical work. Like if you come to Antaiji, most people that come to Antaiji, they come with this idea, it will be great. Like I will be working there in the mountains, out in nature, and I eat the food that I grow by myself. But once you start to actually live there and all year round, like in the winter for 3 months you're snowed in, and then in spring, okay, nature starts to get green again, but right at this season we have nothing to eat. Basically, it sounds all very nice, but once you do it, physical work can also be really hard. Intellectual work, like computer work, you basically do what you're told to do, you do the programming, whatever you do. It's not so easy. It's not so easy. Just like with Zazen, like when you sit for half an hour, maybe it's still okay, but in Antaiji you sit for 5 days. And because you choose so, you choose to go to Antaiji because you know you will be sitting a session every month. But once you do it, it's not so easy. And I think it's the same with work. Like it would be ideal if we had a job that we enjoy all year round. But there is no such job. Just like there is no session that's fun from the first sitting to the last sitting. Everybody who's done a session knows that. There is no such session. And when you go to the mountains, once a year, twice a year with your friends, it's beautiful because you're out of the city. You're away from your job. You're away from your family. But if you had to live in the mountains all year round, you would hate it. You would wish if I could just be back in the city, if I could have my job back and my apartment back. So that's the reality of our life. It would be nice if it would be otherwise, but in a way, I think life is a little bit like a session. Life is like a session. Having a family, being married is like a session. Having a daytime job is like a session. The question is, do you go through that session? Although you would say, well, I would rather not, then it's hell. Or you decide, I want that session. I will take it as a session. It's not always fun. It can be hard, but you decide you want to do it.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
刚才那个朋友他就是说他是一个就是用电脑工作的人，然后薪水也挺好的，工作也很轻松，在家工作就可以。然后他前一阵儿去跟朋友到树林里边散步，然后劳作，觉得特别好。像他这种生活环境，怎么才能体验这种就是一日不作一日不食的这种乐趣？然后那个木鹤老师说，其实就是和我们之前那个就是戒心，我去年前年都参加了那个戒心，1天15个小时，连续5天，那个是一样的。就像有一些人他到安泰寺来体验生活，你可能1年只去1次或2次，然后你觉得来到大自然，然后特别开心，跟大家一块干农活，然后砍树啊，干农活特别高兴。但是如果你1年4季都在那儿的话，你可能就会很辛苦，因为你每天都要劳作，然后冬天还没有吃的，冬天下大雪哪儿都去不了。所以它是一个平衡，像我们的其实平时的生活也是戒心，像那个练习是一样的。你的工作、你的生活，看你是怎样对待，怎样承受你平时的这些辛苦，它和我们去那个做戒心的那个训练是一样的。 所以主要是看自己怎么看待，大概是这个意思啊。
Ingo is raising his hand. Please, Ingo.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe to add to that, what Stefan just said, I had a lot of thoughts on that too. So what does work mean? And actually, for me, it's part of the practice, or you have to see it as part of the practice. And the biggest issue somehow is that when you are in that work pattern, you are lost in a repetitive thing you have to do each day to make your living somehow. And that gets very fragmented in a way. And when you are doing other things like leisure work, that's not so fragmented because it's something different. Yeah. And that looks then very attractive. That's what you meant before. And I think accepting that is that this work pattern is something you have to fill with life and also live fully. That's I think the job or the thing you have to do for yourself, or have to find a way how to do that. Yeah. So that's at least how I try to manage. I'm far from being there, but
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else with a question or comment?
刚才那个朋友其实他就是说，工作其实就是练习，工作是练习的一部分，怎么样处理？他刚才就是一个经验分享，怎么样处理工作就是当中的问题，其实就是练习本身。
Julian is raising his hand. Please, Julian.
Yeah, asking for a friend here. How does one spot when work tips over into overwork and you head towards karoshi or something? So, I totally accept the difficulty of work, the responsibility of work, the daily practice of work. But what do you think Zen has to say about when you've gone across that line away from the middle way? Because Buddhism, of course, is the middle way. It's not lazy and it's not overworking. I wondered what you thought about that.
Good question. Good question. For example, during the session, the question is always like people tell you not to move. Sometimes, like I, for example, also say you have to die on the cushion, but you can also hurt yourself. So when is, for example, a pain that you should just accept as it is? And when is a pain actually hurting yourself and you should, for example, move?
So exactly.
And maybe probably your question is more or less the same just in regard to work. When am I just doing my best? Like often when we think we're tired, I would like to have a holiday now. It's just this, inner myself that's always complaining. We always feel we do too much. And then when we do a little bit more, we might realize, I could actually work a little bit more. But then sometimes we overwork ourselves, and you use that word karoshi, which is Japanese for working yourself to death. And some people in Japan do that literally. They work themselves to death because they don't know when to take a break anymore. So the question is, how do I know which is which? When is it just this kind of inner myself complaining, and when is it a real border?
This is my big question.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't really know. There's no real, guideline or anything that would tell you, hey, now you're doing too much. Hey, now you're not doing enough. If you're living in Antaj in the Sangha, then you have other people around you that will tell you, maybe you should do a little bit more. Maybe you complain too much, or they tell you, hey, maybe it's time for a break.
I wondered if that was why they were hiding his hoe and his spade to stop him overworking.
That's right. Well, they were worried, but he decided that he could still do a little gardening.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't have any good answer to that question.
Except keeping the question open, maybe in our mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
刚才那朋友提的问题就是，你怎么能知道自己是不是工作过量了呢？然后这个你是怎么衡量的？然后老师回答是，就像我们坐禅一样，要求是大家都不要动。然后幕后老师经常说，你要死在垫子上哈。但是其实你真的特别痛苦的时候，你是能动的，就是和这个其实道理是一样的。没有一个什么好的答案，老师也没有答案，只能自己解决。就是老师也不知道这应该是怎么，因为有些时候你工作过量，你工作过量了，然后自己可能会后悔，哎呀，我不应该工作这么久。但是同时你又知道啊，其实我这么累了，工作还是可以完成的，所以他没有一个什么标准，老师没有一个合适的答案。
Any other questions? Jikai-san, please. You're still mute. Now we can hear you.
Okay. I just looked at it, maybe could it be just very literal, as in it's asking us to accept the conditions as they are. One day there's no work, who is to say what is work? One day no food, if there's, like with work, say if you do agricultural work, it could be raining, it could be snowing. One day no food, there may be no food around. You may be snowed in, you can't get food, so it's, to me, it's maybe said, let's just accept conditions.
Yes.
As they are.
Yeah, that's also a possible reading. One day no work, one day no food, one day it's sunny, one day it's rainy. There's a chat comment. Julian, isn't that a decision? In the end, meaning the judgment is up to a decision, if you overwork yourself or not.
刚才这个朋友其实他就是分享了他的一个那个感受，就是他读了这个一日不做一日之事之后，觉得一日不做一日不食，觉得你应该接受，因为有的时候你有工作，有的时候没有工作。你工作的时候劳作的时候，有的时候会下雨会刮风，然后可能有一天你可能会没有吃的，你要接受。这是他对这个一个理解啊。
Any other questions? Any other comments? Xuan-san, please.
Yeah, I feel this is the same like yoga practice. Sometimes the students, I think they can do the asana. Well, my opinion is you can try harder to do the difficult asana. But if the student, they maybe wanted to do it, but they're afraid. Or maybe they can't do it. So the students, they themselves have to make a decision. If you want to challenge yourself, you can't challenge yourself. You don't want to challenge. Sometimes I think you can do it, or maybe I think it's too much. You're not ready to practice too difficult asana. But the student maybe wanted to try. It's really a personal, decision. You have to make the decision on your own practice. It's because you're the person who really on the way doing your practice. Also, like if if you can't management other stuff, or like if you can't get up early, or you can't eat healthy, or you have too much work, it's very difficult to keep training. You have to management or other stuff. It's all you have to live in a yoga way, or you can say you have to live in a Zen way. Then you can keep your practice. So live in the way, have a yoga life is part of your yoga practice. If you can't eat healthy, if you can't get up early, or you work too much, it's really hard to keep the practice, because that's all part of your practice. My really this, I thought about the practice.
Yeah, I think if something is really our life, then we can do a lot. We can really do a lot. But I think also with Zazen, you start to hurt yourself, or you start to overwork yourself if you mentally, it's like driving a car with the handbrake drawn, kind of. You're stepping on the gas, but you're also pulling the brake at the same time. Like you're working, but you're telling yourself, I shouldn't be working so much. But then you push yourself at the same time. And sometimes you do that during Zazen. Like you say, I'm in pain, I want to move, but I'm not supposed to move. And you kind of fight against yourself. And that's when you hurt yourself. While if you're completely relaxed, and when I say die on the cushion, I don't mean with grind your teeth and die. But I mean, you completely let go. And in this completely relaxed attitude, it's really hard, almost impossible to hurt yourself. And I think with yoga and work, I think it's the same. If you really say, well, this is my life, then you can do quite a lot. But often it's not like this. We would say, well, I would rather take a break, but I shouldn't take a break. You're fighting against yourself. And that's when you kind of really not doing anything good to yourself. Oh.
刚才我也是跟老师说，其实这跟和我们平时那个瑜伽练习是一样的。有些时候就是我的意见可能是跟同学说，你可能现在这个我觉得你能做一些动作，但是同学自己可能觉得我做不了，或者是我觉得你现在可能还没有做好准备练习这些动作，但是你愿意想练，就是其实这些都是别人的意见，真正做决定的还是你自己。老师刚才说那个意思也是，就是我们经常是油门和刹车一块踩，一边往前走一边往后撤，都是和自己的抗争。所以你如果把练习和修行当成你生活的一部分，重点是要放松下来，放松下来其实才能有这个放松的态度，才能做好一个正确的决定。但是这个放松的态度放下就特别难。其实我们主要练习的是这个。Yes, relax is the most difficult thing. Relax.
Yeah. Even when working hard, you need to work hard and relax at the same time. It's a koan, yeah.
Yeah. Chris,
I was just, my personal opinion about Julian's question, and what Muho just said reminded me of it. I want to get a lot of family members and stuff to be healthier and like exercise and stuff. And a lot of people always tell me, oh, I don't have time because I'm working. But I feel like if I work like 12 hours a day and I don't exercise, I'm going to be less efficient than if I work less and then I take care of myself. So my personal opinion is, if you're working so much that your efficiency is reduced to where you're not getting as much done if you worked less hours and did other stuff, I think that's my opinion on that. And then that also reminds me of Muho talked about in some of his writings about his experiences, there was some kind of difference in opinion between his teacher and doing work, where Muho said he wanted to be more efficient and do things more efficiently. So that might be kind of related too, but it depends on what the purpose of your work is, I think.
And I think also it is this really taking care of not putting effort into work. I mean, still working hard and wholeheartedly, but watching out for effort that doesn't need to be there, effort that is goal orientated and effort that is driving stress. So it's about keeping an eye out for that that effortful action as well, I think. But yeah, and everyone has to find their own space with it, don't they? Their own balance. So. It's nice to talk about, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Any other comments?
Yes.
Oh, Eiko, please.
Hello. I find it quite amazing what this brings up and how all these different perspectives play together. I think the koan from today is quite simple and practical. It's like, especially when you are self-sufficient in somewhere, you have to work to get your food, and if you don't work, you don't have food, and this is of course part of your practice. And if someone is taking the practice away from you, well, and you are the teacher or what, then you can teach your students a lesson and you don't eat or something. And I think it's really practical, because it's your life and it is your practice. Your life is your practice, and it's only your practice. What you're doing is your practice. It's your life, and every single one is different. And yeah, I think it's so practical. It's amazing. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, quite a number of people already had to leave. So in Europe, what time is it now? Past 2 o'clock, I think. Or is it past 1? 7 hours. Past 10 past 2. In Israel, is it past 3 o'clock? 10 past 3. Here in Japan is 10 past 9. If you don't have any other question, I would say let's finish today, and we can see each other again on Monday, next Monday, or Sunday. Last Sunday, yesterday, didn't really work with the live streaming, but hopefully next Sunday I can also live stream. So in most parts of the world, that would be Saturday evening or Saturday afternoon. But anyway, this class will take place again on Monday, same time, hosted by Xuan. See you again. Have a nice week. Thank you for participating. Bye.